You are watching CIOTV by Enterprise IT World, a production of Accent Infomedia.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Enterprise IT World, webinar on modern data experience presented by Your Stories. Hope everyone is safe and healthy. Thank you very much for taking time on attending this event. You know, data is a new oil today. It has been corroborated by this year's budget presented by the finance minister, saying that the country is going to be a digital country, digital fast country. There is a huge focus on digitization, huge focus on creating digital currency, digital universities. Fiber optic is going to every village now. There will be 7 banks, scheduled banks who will be setting up 7 digital banks in the 7 districts. Curriculum is going to be changed, whatnot. So India is looking ahead for next 25 years. So today's discussion is very, very important, looking at the present context as far as India is concerned. There is, of course, a study there in global level. One of the studies by MIT Sloan says that those organizations which have got data first strategy are able to grow 20% faster than the other organizations. So data is so important. It's definitely a new world. Our gentlemen here, the experts of the industry, from the OEM side, from the customer side, we have very good mix. We have got cyber security expert. We have got very senior person from the industry who has already given 30-35 years of his life into this IT industry. We'll be hearing from them. And it's a very small event of 1 hour, which will start with a presentation about modern data experience from Mr. Ramanujam Komanduri, who is the country manager for India Pure Storage. Post that, we have got a panel discussion on steps to mitigate data challenge amid remote work, which will be moderated by Mr. Subhojit Roy, who is ex-CIO SBI Mutual Fund and is very senior and engaged in this industry also. Plus, we have got Mr. Manish Gaur, IT head for Patanjali, Mr. Mohammad Irshad, Director IT and CDIO, Shardul, Amarchand and Mangaldas Industries. So also we have got Mr. Jagannath, Sahoo, Head Services Delivery, MSS, and ISOC Bharti Airtel. Plus, that's what is the present of our presenters and the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we'll start. A small request to you is that please be attentive, and if you have any query or question, post it in the question or chat box. We'll try to accommodate all these questions within the time frame. With this, thank you very much, and I'll request Mr. Ramanujam, please go ahead and take it forward from here.
Yep, thank you very much, Sanjay, and good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to all my fellow panel members. It's absolutely a delight to see all of you and be able to talk along with all of you. So I'll just take about 15 odd minutes to describe what we do as an organization and what our strengths are. So Pure Storage as a company, we are a little over a decade old. In fact, we pretty much call ourselves as one of the modern data players. With the technology having changed so fast in the last decade, we completely are different from what the standard legacy data management players you would have seen in the industry. We are close to about a 2 billion odd company so far, and we're adding customers. We're adding a lot of new customers as we speak. Globally, we have over 9,500 customers. In India, we have over 70 odd customers and a huge amount of install base all around the country. Actually, I'll talk about that a little later. A few things which are very prominent with us is that our NPS, and that is something called a Net Promoter Score, which measures the customer satisfaction levels and which also measure what is called as the inclination of customers to recommend a particular technology to others. We score almost about 83.5, which is actually way too high vis-a-vis rest of the industry. Most of the industry is about 60. And our score over there is purely a testament to the technology as well as to the satisfaction levels, which we have been able to keep up to over the last decade that we've been in operations. Our revenue, which we earn from subscription, and this is something which, again, we are very, very proud of, because in the current cloud world, everything one does in terms of the IT technology or IT infrastructure is cloud ready or cloud enabled. So our subscription revenues, the revenues we generate from customers trying to subscribe to our technology or innovation, as you would like to call, has been growing at over 30% year over year. And that's again something which is very high for a pure product and technology company vis-a-vis the rest of the industry. What this has caused us is actually for Gartner to rate us as a leader in their Magic Quadrant. We're in fact rated higher than any of the others. Again, you'd see all the familiar names out there. We are rated beyond most of the other existing players in the industry purely because of our ability to deliver on our vision. The completeness of the vision, what we've laid out for ourselves, and also the ability to deliver on that vision. We are ranked higher than most of the other organizations which you would otherwise think to be the leaders. Now, just changing positions a little, and we were talking about this yesterday too. Over the last decade, the whole concept of data has changed enormously. Not only is that you handle petabytes and petabytes of data nowadays, and in fact, the growth is getting into zettabytes in some of the larger organizations, but the nature of data itself has changed. If you just think about the early 2000s, majority of the data used to be highly structured and used to reside in the normal databases, which that has completely transformed right now. Every device is actually generating data, and that data is what is being stored and looked at and analyzed and made sense of by all the organizations. Now, what's also happening is while there is the data center and the data center which is in the cloud premises and so on, but a lot of computing or a lot of intelligence is actually moving to the edge. And I remember I was talking to Manish about a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how they're looking at data being generated by some of their subcontractors, some of their vendors, some of their retail outlets. And I'm sure it's the same case with Airtel, for example, or it's the same case with Irshad, your firm too, where a lot of data is actually generated nowadays from the devices which people carry. It can be a watch, it can be a smartphone, it can be a audio device, a whole bunch. And everything needs to be stored, it needs to be secured, and it needs to be accessible at any point of time. What's also happened in the last 2 years, is that because of the way the work has moved from structured offices onto remote areas or onto work from home situations, or even, I mean, people work from cafes nowadays. Some of them just, feel tired of sitting at home and go into a local cafe and use the Wi-Fi to access their corporate network. Now, can you control this? You definitely cannot. Can you predict what sort of a device would be accessing your network? You definitely cannot. But what needs to happen is the data needs to be available all the time. It needs to be secure, because you need to ensure that the right set of people are actually accessing the data which they are eligible for. But at the same time, be able to get all the logs which are generated by all these devices, so that you can handle any eventualities which can happen because of any security breach or any other such situations which can arise. And that needs to happen on real time. Because this data, the data which is being generated, which is being fed, which is being collected, is actually what is the new intelligence. I mean, think about it. When you apply for a loan, or when you apply for a credit card, or when you apply, go and swipe your card on to buy a new device, for example, everything is automated at the back. The decision for a go or no go is made by the bank at that very instance, right? So that's the sort of intelligence which they generate from the data which they have kept about each and every consumer, for that matter. So this new world of data, as we call, is only going to increase in terms of complexity. And so what we have done is we have created a technology, or the applications which have come about as a result of this, is we help organizations manage the new containerized form of applications, because these are the ones which are the new age applications, if you will, and they are being created by a whole host of startups. They're created by all the organizations like yourselves, and you subscribe to a plethora of new applications which are possibly available on the cloud and so on. So it's a combination of these two, the new age applications, the modern applications which are coming into force right now, plus the complete variance of data which has happened in the last decade plus, which has caused us actually to create what we call the modern data experience. Think about it. It is what matters is the speed at which the data is fed. I mean, if a lawyer is sitting in a court trying to argue a case and he wants to refer to an old case, for example, he needs to be able to get that on his fingertips. He cannot be waiting, or he cannot put in a request and wait for it for after a couple of hours and so on. Again, it needs to be accessible everywhere. Like I said, he can be sitting in a court, he can be sitting in a cafe. As a subscriber of Airtel, I would like to be accessing music from wherever I would like. And Airtel provides me data about myself from at any point of time, irrespective of where I am seated or at what point of time the day is, right? So the access needs to be possible from everywhere. And a few of the things which we have done is we have created a technology which is absolutely simple. Think about your own iPhone. A decade ago, you used to bring your phone home and refer to the manual to turn it on and do the settings. But when you bring in your phone now, or you bring in your smartphone, you just turn it on. That's it. And it turns on and sets by itself. That's how our technology is created. In fact, we say that our technology, we don't even have an instruction manual with our storage devices. It takes less than 20 minutes to set it up. And there is nothing. There are no cables. There are no controllers. There are nothing, except there are 2 power cards, 2 network cables, and 2 management cables. That's what comes out of the system. Nothing else. It's as simple as that. And we have a unique ability. Like I said, our subscription revenue is something which is growing 30% year over year. We believe that you should not be in a position to refresh your infrastructure ever. Why should you? Right? It should be available as a subscription. You should be able to call for the next and the next latest technology and be able to upgrade to it without any downtime, because businesses are out of downtime right now. Businesses are running 24/7. That's the sort of technology which we propagate in the industry right now, and that's what we call as the modern data experience. Within India, we have with customer locations all across the country. We have spares locations all around the country. In fact, I must say that we possibly are the only OEM who has spares locations all across. Delhi is another one which we've started very recently. So we are present all around the country, and we'd be happy to talk to you as and when something comes up at your end. So that's what I had to share about ourselves. Hopefully it made some sense. And over to you, Sanjay.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ramanujam. Good way to explain and good way to learn from you as to how to, create a data strategy within the organization. So now it's time for the panel discussion. And I'd request the topic is steps to mitigate data challenges amid remote work. And I would request our moderator, Mr. Subhojit Roy, to take over from here. And the panelists are Mr. Jagannath Sahoo, Head Service Delivery, Bharti Airtel Limited, Mr. Mohammad Irshad, Director IT, CDIO, Shardul Amarchand and Mangaldas, Mr. Manish Gaur, IT Head, Patanjali. I will request Mr. Ramanujam also stay back. You are also part of this panel discussion. Mr. Subhojit, now please take it over from here.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Ramanujam. Good afternoon to all of you, all the panel members and all the viewers or listeners who are participating in today's discussion. A warm welcome to all of you. As Sanjay has already mentioned, you are aware that today's topic of discussion is titled Steps to Mitigate Data Challenges Amid Remote Work. So it's a very pertinent and very relevant, as well as it's a very interesting question, because how the future will unfold, I think most of us are not able to predict now based on the last 2 years experience. So how the future of personal life and professional life will become, so it's very uncertain and at the same time challenging and also interesting because it's very unpredictable. So while we are talking about our recent experiences and challenges with various aspects of managing data in our organizations, respective organizations, while working remotely, either complete remote or hybrid mode. So during our course of our discussion, we'll try to find out, so what are our experience and what is our learnings? And also we try to see what lies in the future. So all the panel members we are happy to have eminent panel members. They are all IT leaders and CIOs in their respective industry and domain, as Sanjay has already introduced to them. So let me welcome all the panel members also, Irshad, Manish, Jagannath, and Ramanujam. So since the panel represents across different industries, so we can expect to hear various experience and challenges and solutions across different sectors. So that will be also interesting to see how things are different or similar from industry to industry. So before we go to the actual question answers in the form of a panel discussion, let me already, Ramanujam has set some context. Let me set some more context to our discussion. So as we see with the rise of remote and hybrid work, there are two sides of this. There's a positive side and there's a challenging side. So one couple of positive sides are there, like a lot of shift has happened to the cloud-based platforms across various organizations, across various applications, infrastructure. So all of you are knowing. So, and also I think future things will happen very radically. Another thing has come into the realization of most of us, the question of data-driven. We are calling it data-driven organizations, data-driven operations. as Ramanujam has already outlined, how important is the data, not only data in a pure form, and how computing has shifted to the ages, and how the data is criticality and availability are becoming the two critical factors. So every organization today who has to survive in the coming days or years has to be data driven. So each and every employee has to wear two hats. One is the data, they has to be data savvy, they should be data aware, so that entire data organization is data driven. And at the same time, every person has to be a risk manager or information security manager, because that is also becoming the other side of the coin. So there are few challenges are coming with this kind of a growth. One is that this potential exposure of vulnerabilities of data due to remote and hybrid work. So that's one of the challenges, okay? Along with that, we are seeing the challenges of data protection, data privacy, and cybersecurity threats. Some of the recent surveys say that around almost 65% of IT leaders or IT managers surveyed by this particular survey has told that it is much easier to protect the data when employees used to work in office a few years back, which is not the case today. And I think, and most of us will agree, you will agree that it will not be the same case. So it will most likely, it will be a hybrid workplace in the future. But at the same time, another survey says that almost 75% of remote workers prefer to work remotely, keep on working remotely in the future after the pandemic is over. And almost 61% of people or employees surveyed, they prefer hybrid mode of working because of flexibility and other issues. So these are the, these are the positive sides, and these are the challenges. In view of these challenges and other aspects, so IT leaders and CIOs are faced with multiple questions in their mind. So one side, they have to provide remote access to all the employees in the organization, and also that has to be in a very secure and reliable manner. At the same time, they have to satisfy the business requirement of each and every company. That is the data. Not only data, Ramanujam has talked about the plethora of unstructured data, so which generally is known as big data. So entire handling of big data has to be done by the CIOs and IT leaders, and also on top of that, you have to provide analytics. And all the thing has to be done just in time at the hands of the users when they require. So that's the one side of the story. Other side of the story is that IT leaders, CIOs also need to protect the organization's interest from possible cyber attacks and other types of attacks. Ransomware being one of the largest threat to most of us. How to protect the customer data, and also how to protect the PII data. Okay, the personally identifiable data. So the entire data privacy, data protection is coming into play. As you know, Indian Parliament has already passed the bill, so it is being discussed in Parliament. It is supposed to be enacted through a law, so data protection law, which will come into place, which has been modeled in many aspects on the basis of GDPR. So once that is coming, obviously, every company will be liable to protect data, PII data, personal customer data, and so many things will come into place. So ultimately, we need to think of future in terms of how the future workplace will look like from the employee perspective, also how the future data organization will look like. So these are the two areas which are going to decide how the company will perform in the future. So with this introduction, let me go to the questions to the panel members. So let me start with Jagannath. Jagannath, so if you can share what you have done in your organization in terms of providing remote or hybrid workplace to each and every employee in a secure manner. Okay, and also you can add what will be your view, what will be how do you think the future workplace will look like in the coming years?
Yeah, let me start. Actually, before now coming to my point, let me come to Ramanujam told everywhere we are getting data. So I handle ISOC. So it is a multi-tenant multi-tenant environment where every data we are feeding into our SIEM tool and we are getting meaningful data. And recently, one customer asked how much data we are pulling every month. So we found 170 terabyte data we are pulling from customer to give the meaningful logs. So this was for Ramanujam. Actually, he was telling everywhere we're pulling data. And regarding this COVID, we don't know whether phase 4 will come or phase 5 will come. So there it is going to be hybrid model everywhere. Even if you everybody must have seen the school also is going in hybrid model. So there is no end to it, and we have to live it with. In this hybrid model, I can see the top 5 challenge. So I'll answer in two questions. What are the challenge and what are the possible solutions we should adapt and what we are adapting? So I can foresee the 5 big challenge is coming. One is ransomware, where they will push some malware into your system and they will encrypt your data. Now discussion is going also ransomware version 2. So they can ask ransom money twice. So this is number 1 challenge we can see. And number 2 challenge we can see in this environment is phishing attack. So a lot of phishing attack is happening through mail and others. Number 3 challenge we can see is data leakage. Okay. Although we have all possible solutions we have implemented, I'll come to all solutions, but let me tell all top 5 problems: ransomware, phishing, data leakage, hacking, insider threat. The last one is insider threat. That is also more dangerous. So these top 5 challenge I can see with the hybrid model and remote working. But in couple of company also through remote modeling, their performance also increased. Couple of the performance also not increased, not satisfactory. But yeah, it is going to be continued. Yes, but now coming to solution, what are the possible solution we should adapt for this hybrid model or remote work? Number 1, I'll tell you to develop cybersecurity policy, because earlier cybersecurity policy was different. It was for everybody will work from office, but now it will be some will be office, some will be other. So we should develop the cybersecurity policy first. And if you go to point number 2, what we should adapt? Choose remote access software, because now so once laptop is getting couriered, once employee is joining it, the laptop is getting couriered, and so we should have proper remote access software where he can take remote and do all necessary installation of software, patches, all these things. And if you point number 3, if I'll go to so I'll tell all 7 practices what we follow and we suggest to customer also. So next is encryption, and we should have encryption enabled in all the system. Because office laptop should be fully encrypted, so that whatever data he's sending also that should be in encrypted formats. And number 4, everybody implement password management software also. Nowadays, it is very critical to implement password management software. And next thing, suppose we need to implement, we should have 2-factor and 3-factor authentications. So which is very critical. Earlier, 2-factor authentication was not so critical because everybody was working in office. Now, even if we are giving file server access to every employee to home, because we will not able to work without that. The next point I want to tell the employee the principle of least privilege. So you have to find out which is most privilege and what is the least privilege. As I told you PI data, as I told you different data, we should find out what is the privilege of this data. And the last one is awareness training. So we should conduct a lot of awareness training. As our organization, we have conducted a lot of awareness training in this period because everybody was working from home. This how, as I mentioned, top 5 risk is ransomware, phishing, data leakage, hacking, and insider threat. To give solution also, we have to develop cybersecurity policy, use encryption, remote access software, and 2-factor authentication. These are the possible solutions, what I feel.
Okay, thank you, Jagannath. So quickly, Ramanujam, if I can come to you, based on your vast experience of interacting with various segments of the customers, clients across various industries. So what do you think what is the future look like in terms of data protection, data availability, and future of work? What are your key thoughts on these areas?
Yeah, so the future of work is pretty much hybrid. It's going to be more remote than on-site, if you will, or on-prem, right? And the biggest requirement would be to make, especially from the IT teams would be to make the relevant data available at a time when it is most wanted, right? So now that is as far as the work environment goes. Now data protection, like Jagannath said, I think the concept of ransomware or the concept of hacking or the concept of cyber breach is only going to increase, and it's possibly going to get more advanced. Always that's possibly more advanced than the normal technology. So the ability to protect is one aspect, but I think the bigger question which will always remain is how quickly can you recover in case there's an eventuality. How quickly can you recover? Because a downtime is going to be loss of revenue, clearly. Right. So how quickly can you recover is going to be the biggest question for IT. And in fact, technology vendors like ourselves, we provide a whole bunch of. We are actually seeing a lot of requirements of ransomware protection, or of what we call as safe mode data protection, and so on. So those are some of the new things which are actually coming in from a lot of customers, and that's what is being asked. The third point you mentioned, data. It is everything is going to be tracked. Everything needs to be tracked, whether it is a vehicle, whether it is a device, whether it is a wearable device, whether it is a smartphone or laptop or any of the other devices connected to the network, to edge devices. All of them are going to be tracked, and data will be logged. They'll be analyzed and fed back to them. So, and the complexity is only going to increase. Right, so it's always about how do you use more and more modern technology to keep the IT infrastructure updated.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ramanujam. So with this background with us, sort of a context. So now we move to Manish. If I can ask you a question to you. So one side, we talked about a lot of challenges in terms of data availability and security challenges and so many, so and so. But at the same time, we are enterprises, all the organizations today is data driven. So where the entire big data, structured, unstructured data, and the volume of data, those are coming into picture. So can you just share what are the challenges you have seen in your organization or your network, and what do you think will be the future? How do you handle this big data, and how do you really overcome these challenges in future so that businesses are able to access the data at the right time, and so on and so forth?
So, Mr. Roy, thank you very much for asking the question. So, a few weeks back, I was seeing the news. So it was saying somebody there was a news. The TCS for the India exported the data in terms of the amount more than what UAE sent the oil outside. So it was like software development. So I'm sorry for that. The software development, we earn more than what the UAE exported. That UAE exported oil to the other countries. So second thing is that so that was the software development. So that is also a data, and that is also an application. Second thing is that nowadays everybody is saying that data is a new oil. Okay. So what is the data? Data is what all the information we are gathering from the different resources. So so India was also developing the application. So what all the application we are developing. So if you see the end of the application, we'll found that we are collecting the data. We are collecting the information, or we are processing the information, right? So everything is in the form of the data. So either you are talking about the emails. So if I take take an example of a small email, right? What we are talking about the emails. Now the same things are done by the bots. If you can preserve your emails for a long period of time, and then you can put the AIML on the top of it, definitely you can build the better bots by seeing the results of the emails. So what we are answering, what a person is answering for a particular question, that can be the part of the AIML learning perspective, and then you can get the better bots also. So everywhere we have the data, and then we have to keep the data, not for the compliance perspective also. I'll say that for the future requirement also, and that is the wealth of the future also. So like my company, we are into the diversified domain. We are not into a single domain. And then we are fetching the information from the so many sources, like what Mr. Ramanujam was talking about, like from the retailers, from the distributors, from the customers. Then we are into the education, from the students, we are into the agriculture also, from the farms, from the fields. Then we are into the broadcasting also. So we are collecting the information. We have the information from the various domains. So definitely the purpose of that information tomorrow can be to make the better decision. So like we have the information from X domain, then we have the information Y domain, from the Z domain. But now where to keep that information? Because the information is coming like in the form of terabyte and terabytes. So we should keep that information in a silo, right? So that we can retrieve that information also from that silo. So nowadays, like everybody knows, like big data is a good solution. So the big data is a solution to keep the information, but then the thing come to retrieve the information also, like what Mr. Ramanujam was talking about, right? So we have the two perspectives of keeping the data. Now, one is keeping the data and one is retrieving the data. Keeping the data, definitely we can have the solutions. You can say about big data, what we call the Scala kind of that. But when we're talking about the retrieving of the information, that time we require the high-speed storage also, so that we can make the decision very fast. Okay, so what I think now, like people are talking about nowadays, we are talking about that big data, keeping the big data. When we have the multiple terabyte of data, petabyte of data, that is good. But a day will come when we need that information. So we should have another type of storage also, which is doing some pipelining kind of thing, retrieving the data from the older system where we have like multiple petabyte of data, putting into the faster system, and then showing us to us. So the future of the like keeping the data is large data keeping storage we required. Second thing is the fast data storage, fast retrieval of the data required from the storage. So this is what I would like to say, Mr.
Okay, Manish, thank you. So I'll come to Irshad. Irshad represent, I think, one of the largest law firms in the country, where I think 700 plus lawyers are working. So keeping that in mind, and the entire law as a industry is really growing very fast in a country like India. So it's not only today, it's not just a pure law, it's a lot of consultancy and a lot of other works are being done. So in the view of this huge number of data and kind of projects or companies, data is being handled by law firm like Amarchand. So what do you see, Irshad, that changes is happening in terms of business continuity strategy or data backup, data retention strategy? So can you just tell us about what did you see changes and what will happen in the future as per you?
Sure, that's a very good question. And before I actually get into it, let me just start by saying that the first and foremost, what business needs. So regardless of whether we are saving the data in our data center or in the cloud or using some software as a services, business really doesn't care about any of these things. What they care is that they need to have the timely access of the data, which is 24/7. They need to have a good experience, whether they're accessing the data from the sources like file servers or they're accessing data from some of the applications. It has to be available with great experience, and there should not be any interruptions whatsoever to access those information and the data. So that's very vital. And now, since people are working either from home, and many research says that people will be, the hybrid working is going to stay. So this has become even more vital. So some people may not have such great bandwidth at their location where they're accessing the information. In the office, it was very easy because those information was used to get access from dedicated lease lines and the very high-speed local area network. But now this entire landscape has changed. So while this landscape has changed, I think everybody has posed with the challenge to make sure that the user experience does not differ. The data and the information is always available, and henceforth. So coming back to the BCP and the DR thing. So what I have clearly seen, and these are my personal views, that what happens is that before this pandemic, when we had, say, in any of the organization, when they go and write the BCP plan or DR plan, they keep a few perspective in their mind that if we need to invoke this plan, people will be available at that point in time in the office. There is going to be somebody who is going to invoke that plan. Somebody is going to respond to it, and hence, this entire BCP is going to work. But now, I think since people are not really located next to each other, so that means some changes in the BCP plan has to be made, considering that people are not really sitting in the office, and they will not be sitting in the office as the world is evolving. The other thing is, as I mentioned about the availability of the data and the information, we have to factor that the data has to be always on. So whatever architecture that we had built in the past, we'll have to reassess that architecture and make sure that there is an always on architecture available. We can no longer have the architecture and the landscape set up in such a way that if, say, one set of system goes down, the other may take a couple of hours or days to come back. So we'll have to make sure that systems are running, no matter if one is failing or the other is failing and all. The other important element, and my last point to this question, is that the BCP plan needs to be tested more practically now. So earlier, I remember a couple of years back, when people really used to do tick in the box. They used to have this BCP drill running once in a year, wherein some of the IT folks would go do some of the service testing, and then they will come back and report that, look, we have tested all the services, they are working. If the disaster occurs, we'll be able to restore the business. I think now we will have to, instead of going and using that methodology, we will have to make sure that the entire landscape is realistically tested. When I say realistically tested, that means we will have to migrate the entire workload from the active data center to passive or DR, whatever you call it. And we will have to ask our users to run the entire normal services from that center. So that this gives 100% assurity that if one of the facility fails or one of the cloud vendor fails, the other cloud or the services or the data center is really taking care of 100% of the business continuity. So I think that's my view here. I'll just give it back. Hope I was able to contribute. Thanks.
Okay. Manish, do you have anything to share with your respect to your company's DRBCP plan, how they are important, and what's the evaluation you have seen in last few years?
Yeah, definitely. So DR is like earlier, the DR was a requirement for the perspective of uptime only. Okay, so we used to have the DR saying that, yes, if we don't have the DR, then we don't get the uptime. But nowadays, the perspective of creating the DR is for the perspective of the security also. Like a lot of ransomware is there. So definitely nobody can say that I'm secure. Okay. So that's why the second perspective of creating the DR and the BCP is for the perspective of the security. And same thing we are following also. Earlier, people used to keep the data, like in the if you talk about the financial industry, like if you talk about the banking and other sector, they used to have the 3 data centers, right? So like a data center, nearby data center, and then foreign data centers. And that was because of the guidelines, RBI guidelines and other guidelines. But nowadays, the company like us also, manufacturing and other companies also, because of the security of the data, we have started keeping the data at the 3 places, like 1 data center, 2nd data center, and 3rd data center. Just to take the security measures because of the ransomware. You know, like the ransomware is running everywhere across the world. So keeping the information is also a big challenge. So nowadays we are also working on the multiple type of DRs, right? DR type 1, DR type 2, and DR type 1, like you can say about that, keeping the transactions data, because every transaction has a value. Like if you are talking about my supply chain management, like what we are transacting to the distributor, what we are transacting to the dealers, what we are transacting to the customers, and definitely in transactions also. So, and second thing is that like data, second level of data also. So the perspective, so the BCP, I say that like everybody's company is working towards the BCP, BCP and DR planning. And we are also working into the same direction, like creating the multiple type of DRs now. And that is also important because for the uptime also and the security.
Okay. Okay. I'll come back to you with some other thought. So let me go to Jagannath with very contextual question. See, Jagannath, you are working in an environment where Airtel is a telco, where there are two aspects. One is the huge volume of data, and also there's a data, what do you call, protection, privacy, which is most applicable. So both are there. Volume is there, and also data protection is of paramount importance. Also, you are from your organization running managed SOC services, I believe.
Yeah.
So you are seeing the not only in telecom space, in other spaces also. So what's your, what we Ramanujam and we said about, there are two things. One is the data protection that is beyond anybody's doubt, as well as that people are today coming from anonymous devices, right? So but that you cannot stop, but you need to authenticate the user and given the proper access. So in this context of plethora of devices, unknown devices, and also plethora of huge number of volume of data and customer data. So entire that protection and other authenticity. So what are the various vulnerabilities you are seeing, and how do you think like organization like you, like a SOC service providers on a managed service, how you are coping up with this kind of challenges and going forward?
So before that, I'll tell you, I remember the pandemic one when started. That time I was taking care of service delivery of all this MPLS, IMPLS, NLD, link, local loop, everything. So okay, ILP, link, everything also. So I must have received call from every company to upgrade the bandwidth overnight, because the VPN is the only solutions. Because work from home, the VPN, through VPN only they can log into the system securely with 2-factor and 3-factor authentication and all these things. So VPN was the only solutions. That time overnight we upgraded bandwidth for every customers. Okay. Because there is no other solution for this for on work from home. VPN solution, VDI solutions, all solutions, every solution required bandwidth in customer place, bandwidth customer in the sense user place, where user is working at his home through FTTH connectivity or through fiber connectivity or through broadband connectivity. Similar in data center, equal bandwidth required in data center, because the backbone internet also we need to make it strong. So also there is a lot of risk is there, a lot of vulnerabilities there. So to avoid all this vulnerability, what are the top 10 steps we should have taken and we should have guided to user, and we have been guiding to all users. So number one, if they are connecting public Wi-Fi, they are connecting to VPN. VPN is more safe. Connecting VPN is more safe because public Wi-Fi may be challenged. After connecting public Wi-Fi, better connect to VPN, office VPN, so that some check will be there what data is flowing. Number two, we ensured every user is being very strong password. Because if you see in Google also, what are the password, what are the common password used? Many people use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ABCD, like this. So we recommended everybody to do a strong password. Number three, use caution before clicking. Before clicking any link, you should make caution is made by user should see whether it is a secure site, unsecure site, whether it is a phishing attack or not. So a lot of phishing simulation we did in many company. We did a phishing simulation. I cannot quote the company names, but we did a phishing simulation. We intentionally created, suppose a company is abc.com. So we created abcc.com like this, and we created a campaign to by sending mail to different customer, different all employees, and we found out how many employees getting caught there. Okay, so that analysis also we did. So this is number three, and number four, we suggested not to do oversharing on social media, because people are having habit of sharing many things, oversharing on social media, which is not recommended in this. These all will part of it will create vulnerability in system. And limit employee to access to company data. We have to limit, every data should not be accessible to everybody. So there should be proper control. That should be quarterly mechanism to validate how much access supposed to be there and what is to be how much access is already there. Okay, track all the devices, because in this pandemic, BYD also enabled. You remember during first phase also there was a lot of crisis in laptop. So initially we started to BYD. So after allowing BYD also, tracking all devices become very critical. And limit personal use of data. So when we are giving any laptop to anybody and any device to anybody, they are using for personal also, officer also. So we too need to ensure they are very using less personal work. And encourage employee to quickly report their cyber mistakes. If any employee is knowingly doing cyber mistake, unknowingly he has done cyber mistake, he should report immediately, because at least some preventive measure we can take. As IT security organization, we should take preventive measures also. And every application overnight we try to make two-factor authentications. Every application, and nowadays every company has started also made two-factor authentication. And next point I want to tell, we need to train the users regularly. Regularly we need to train the users. And next point is we need to cover to our the vulnerabilities to make cyber security is part of offboarding. So when an employee is resigning, yes, we are deleting his user ID, and there is a single system. Once we delete one user ID, then every application will get deleted. But yes, we should be cyber security be part of offboarding, and we should think properly also in that way. In the new policies should be there. Okay. Next point I want to so artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, AI, ML plays a very big role. I'll tell you, in our SIM tool, we have a MIL, AI and ML tool. If user is downloading 1 GB every day, regular average is 1 GB 800 MB, but suddenly he's doing 10 GB terabyte data, so it gives an alert also. So we're used to know irregular behavior of any user, any users also. So, and last point I want to tell, we should consider cyber insurance. Many company has started doing cyber insurance, even if many vendor also, while giving their antivirus software and endpoint software also, they are giving cyber insurance, and they're giving guarantee also, we'll cover your insurance. If anything hacking will happen, any ransom will happen, then we'll cover through your insurance. So these are the points in your mind to avoid this vulnerability in system with the remote working.
Okay. Yeah, Ramanujam, one of the questions coming to my mind is that with the change of scenario of COVID, pandemic, hybrid work, and top of that data-driven organizations. So across the industries, what you have seen from the regulators' point of view, because I come from BFSI sector, so in last few years, I have seen there's a dramatic shift with respect to regulators. Mostly I'm talking about, suppose, RBI and SEBI. These are two major regulators in the financial sector. So they are earlier most of the regulations were related to business related rules and regulation. So last few years, there's a huge focus on technology, information security and cyber security, right? So all these regulators have come out with very specific, very pointed mandatory requirements with respect to each of the huge list of checklist and the mandatory and best to have kind of things. So it's a highly regulated industry, and so because all the regulators' job is also protect users or customers' interest, especially in the financial sector. So data and data related or financial fraud is becoming just a regular routine.
Yeah.
So what is your, when you see financial sector and maybe other manufacturing, what are the regulations changes that happened you have seen, and how people are today gearing up for this cyber threats, especially with the ransomware? What is you have seen last couple of years?
So, sir, like you said, the regulatory requirements are becoming more and more stringent for every organization. Not only is it in the case of BFSI, But I remember during some of the conversations I used to have with people in Airtel, the requirements from security agencies of various data points was always there, right? And the same is the case with any consumer-oriented organization has its own requirements of data privacy, or for that matter, for protecting the consumer rights and so on. And in the case of a legal firm, obviously there are the lawyer-client privileges and all those which obviously need extremely high levels of data protection and privacy over there. While that stands, our government itself has said that they are going to bring out, and I think this is something which is still under discussion about the entire data protection laws and so on, right? So this is only going to increase, irrespective of the industry, the regulatory requirements, the need to protect the data related to the citizens or related to the consumers or related to each and every customer is only going to increase substantially. And possibly, that's what also causes the attraction for various ransom demands or for the hackers and so on, right? So it becomes mandatory for organizations to have sufficient ransomware protection mechanisms in place. Like I was saying, while there are the ransomware protection mechanisms already in place with a lot of technology which enable them, but I think the biggest question which organizations will get asked is how fast can you recover and how fast can you get up again on your feet? And I think this is where technology needs to enable some of these things as organizations go forward. So I think with this entire remote work and the digital transformation, like you rightly mentioned, as a country we seem to be moving very, very rapidly into a digital society. So this is something which is only going to increase even more.
Okay. So Irshad, if I come back to you with respect to law industries, and you have worked in some other industries also in the past. So how do you see today, because again, with the change of time and with the digital drive and so many other factors, so cloud is a de facto choice for most of our organizations from various aspects, not only from the application modernization, from the infrastructure, and also this availability aspect. So what do you see your data protection, backup, and business continuity, how cloud adoption is happening in your company or in your peer group or your network? You see how the cloud is adapted from this today's discussion point of view.
Yeah. Thanks. And you know what, clouds is something that I am deeply connected with almost more than a decade now. We'll just give you a small example of one of my previous organization, Rendaxi. About 9 years back, I took a decision to migrate the web security on the cloud. So that time it was like unheard of, and we were the first customer of Zscaler to take this bold step in the country. And if I look at the current situation, I think nobody really is being concerned about whether we should move web security onto cloud or not. So looks like things that we do now may look very different to some people, but as long as we know that we are doing the right things, these would happen. So similarly, now continuing with this example, similarly, if you look at the data backups or the data that is getting stored. Today, there are still many organizations who are storing the data on their on-premise, but this is my experience, I can tell you, you can very well go and store your data onto the cloud and make it absolutely secure. So there won't be any issues. Because when we talk about software as a service, even in that, the data responsibility is owned by the customer. It is not owned by the company who is providing the software as a service. Right. So you have to make sure that all the necessary technical controls, data governance, data visibility is being implemented. As long as you have done it, I don't think there would be any issues. I saw one of the question also being asked in the chat window. Somebody was asking that we have a lot of data in the file server. what shall we do in the
Yeah,
future?
you can reply to Vinod. He was asking since there were 8 TB of data on premises,
Correct.
how in the future. So I think you are already answering his question.
Yeah, correct. So to my viewpoint and basis my experience, I think the long-term strategy should be that you should think of moving all of that data onto cloud. The simplest could be if you are a Microsoft customer, or I mean, I don't want to take the name of the OEMs, but yeah, looking at whatever flavor and technology that you are more comfortable with, go and use their cloud storage and start using them. Like I said, you'll have to make sure that the data governance, right technical controls, and the data visibility is there. And for that also, there are some solutions available which can give you 100% visibility as well as control. I have done it in my previous organization for sure, which is why I can confidently tell you that.
Okay. I think Vinod, I think Irshad has already answered the Vinod question. Mr. Ramanujam, that's another question we are seeing from Sumit Sharma. He's talking about with this cloud journeys and other stuff. He's talking about data vault. So he's talking about, do you think we would have soon data vault certification providers to assure to the C-suite executives on data security? We need an independent certification providers to verify security of data storage solution being used. So he's asking the question of the data vault. What is going to happen in the future?
Yes, sir, I think I would imagine something like that would obviously come. You know, I think it was Jagannath who mentioned that there is this whole concept of insurance, which is developing. I didn't hear that. Now that's something which is new, right? So I am absolutely certain this data vault and people who are going to certify. You know, I remember in the BFSI times, there used to be people who used to certify the BCP-DR process, right? There used to be auditors who used to certify the BCP-DR process and so on. So, or there used to be this whole concept of ITIL certification for IT and so on. So, I would imagine a lot of security-related certifications would happen.
Okay. Yeah, Jagannath, you have anything you want to add?
I'll just, as mentioned, is that people are moving on cloud. I'll just give an example of one thing. Web application firewall. We are giving suppose service of web application firewall. So 3 options we have. One is peripherals we need to put in our customer premises. Second option is customer can put some VMs. Nowadays we can load the software in VMs. But nowadays customers are preferring to go on the scrubbing, whatever the web application firewall scrubbing is happening on the cloud. And people are preferring because why? As and when, because if you order any peripherals, it may take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and 8 weeks also. Okay, but if we're on cloud, we can give within 4 hours. And we found when we are putting any web application on web application firewall, and we found the scrubbing is in cloud is happening perfectly, and only genuine traffic is going to the things. People are moving to clouds, and all storage, everything is going to clouds nowadays.
Okay, Manish, you have any thought on our last point of this? We are almost at the end of the discussion. You have any last thought?
Okay, so I'm saying that like using the cloud is a benefit now, because the thing is the readiness. If I remember, like when I used to add like 1 terabyte of storage, right? I required like more than 10 to 15 days. Okay, so need to procure the hardware, then this and that, plus so many things. Then on the top of it, you have to install the software. Then on the top of it, you have to install the application, and then you can start using it. So because of the cloud now, everything is like you have the things very handy. You make the decision and you can execute that. Okay. So this is the best benefit of the cloud, and definitely the perspective of the security also. Like on the cloud, you have the so many service provider, like service provider A, service provider B, service provider C. Okay, and then you can use them as per your requirement also. Third thing about like with what Ramanuj was talking about, the subscription based storage, right? So these things also you can opt using the cloud. Now you can have the subscription based storage, subscription based services. Okay. So like earlier we used to, like once I bought the storage, then it's a liability for me. Once I bought the hardware, it's a liability for me. For 3 years, for 5 years, either I'm using it or I'm not using it. What's a liability and I need to buy it. Maybe today I have the X requirement, tomorrow maybe I have the X minus and requirement. Still I have to go for that storage or go for that particular server. So the cloud is giving the benefit to us everywhere.
True.
In the challenge in the cloud, when you want to opt for a service for a very, very long time, right? It's like for the 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that time the cost is high, but you can keep on optimizing that cost also. Still, you can save that. You can come out from that challenges of the cost because of the private or public cloud.
Yeah.
Going for the cloud is always a happy thing now. When we talk about the IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, whatever it is, right? So my opinion is, yeah, we are also migrated ourselves from on-prem to on-cloud solution, and definitely we are getting the good services also, and overhead is also less. Like earlier, we used to maintain the data center, we used to maintain the power, we used to maintain the cooling systems, so many things like which is not the part of the IT also, we used to manage it. But even in the COVID period also, we have faced the challenge, like what all the on-prem data center we used to have. So I faced the challenge like how we are going to maintain the utility part of that data center.
Okay.
The biggest thing what we are getting now through the cloud. So definitely most of the companies, they are also moving towards the cloud, and that's why like yesterday the bill came also from the government of India. They include the data center is the part of the infrastructure. So that is a good thing for the data center companies, and for the storage companies also who have the good tie up with the B2B industries also. So this is a good thing. So definitely we should move.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So at one point I just to emphasize, like today we are talking about cloud and a lot of outsourcing in various terms. But if you just to emphasize that ultimately the information security, cyber security responsibility lies with the company, right? So actually the board of the company is liable, responsible for any breach of information security. So even if we outsource, it is the responsibility of the company, the board, and then board delegates to the CEO, managing director, and then it ultimately passes on to the CISO. So it is the responsibility of the company to have a proper due diligence, due care, and to really see if we maybe including the outsourcing. So the entire responsibility, even if we are talking about cloud, so data protection, as Irshad said, data protection is client responsibility. So the cloud service provider may provide you some kind of standard services, but at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the client, because your business will be at stake if any breach happens, especially with the customer data or PII data. So at the end of the day, it is responsibility of the company that your data is protected and you are not breached. So otherwise you will be in a trouble, not only legally, maybe from the customer side, from the reputation and goodwill, so many things. So I think that's the point I also want to emphasize, especially wherever it's very, now all the industry, as Ramanujam said, is highly regulated.
So that is Mr. selection of the partner, right? So who is the partner, right? So if you are talking about the opting the cloud services, so that is selection of the partner plays a key role over there. Like are you going for a small data center company who is not well certified, they are not maintaining the norms, or going for a company who are maintaining all the certification, and they are because see the responsibility, definitely you can take the positive side and negative side also. Positive side is that now you have the shared responsibilities. Earlier you have to manage all the type of physical security, you have to maintain the controls, you have to maintain the data security in out, right? Once you are going for the public cloud or maybe some with the data center, at least you are out from the physical type of security. Now you have to only maintain data security. Okay, so definitely we have to maintain the compliance also. But with the public cloud, if you select the right partner, then definitely you are sharing the risk also with them. Okay, you are passing the risk to them also, what you have. Okay, so definitely, so we should select the right partner if you are opting for the cloud services.
Right. Yeah, you are absolutely right. So I think we have short of time, so we need to end, even if we could have discussed some more time. So again, thank you very much to each of you, Irshad, Ramanujam, Jagannath, and Manish, for your active participation and also a lot of inputs based on your experience and what lies ahead of us. So also a lot of, I think, viewers must have benefited from your thoughts and discussions. So with this note, we will end our panel discussion, and it is over to Sanjay to conclude today's discussion.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sanjay, thank you, Mr. Roy, and
Thank you. Thank you,
everybody.
Mr. Subhojit, Mr. Ramanujam, Mr. Jagannath, Sahoo, Mr. Irshad, and Mr. Manish Gaur. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we heard a lot about the hybrid workplace, future of work, vulnerability, data protection, big data, and backup strategy, cyber attacks, especially ransomware, how to prevent, how to create strategy around that, cloud journey, respect to data protection, backup, and business continuity. I think it's a very good learning session for all of us, very satisfying and gratifying as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out and joining this event. I wish you stay safe and wish that we'll invite you and see you in our future events. Thank you very much.